Okay, you're welcome along to this evening's football show. Very happy to say Pat Nevin is with us. Good evening. Good afternoon, let's be honest. We're recording this earlier on today. They can see us in the bright light if they're watching. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes, it's an interesting time. I've actually been from a morning run, and this afternoon the garden needs some work done. So, and it's a beautiful day here in Scotland. I don't know if you've got the same in Ireland, but it's gorgeous here. So, got to enjoy and love every moment of it. Like, it's a bit of thing just now. Everyone feels so down about the coronavirus, and understandably so. But you kind of got to try to find the joy in there somewhere in life. This is part of life. You've got to find the joy wherever it is inside it. That's not to ignore the troubles that people are having. It's just accepting the good bits you can get, grab them.
You ran 10K this morning.
Yeah, generally that's minimum I would run at the moment. So I do that each day now. I didn't used to do it. So I've lost something 8.5 pounds since lockdown, because before that you're travelling to games, you're eating stuff you shouldn't be eating, you're not getting all the exercise you should do. I've been let loose and I'm loving it now. Absolutely loving it now. So it's hill running. It's brilliant. And of course I live in the countryside, so within 30 seconds I'm in the hills. Love doing it. Which is, when you ask me every other week, can these footballers not get fit? And I'm going, actually, yeah, they should be, because they should be out there running every day. I'm ancient and I do it every day. So, I love it. But then I did talk to an old mate of mine, Brian McClare. I was talking to him on Zoom the other day there. And Brian, he started getting out running. And that was the biggest shock I've had this year, because he hates running. Some people just hate it. It doesn't matter if you're a sportsman or whatever. Some people just hate running. But at the moment, in these times, you kind of got to do it if you can.
Deep down, if I'm being honest, I hate it. Yeah. It's just not built for it. I can just even tell by your general physique, you're built for it, you're made for it. For me, it's a means to an end. And the end is the joy when you get back out of the shower. That 2-3 hours, the rest of the day almost. I mean, just physiologically, mentally, whatever other way you want to mention, the difference it makes. So for me, each step is felt. And I endured almost, and I've never quite been able to get to a point where I love it and I love the process of it.
Actually, anyone who's not into it and doesn't love running, right? See, those of us who love it, right? It's not easy. It's really, honestly, it's not easy. We feel the pain too. It's absolutely the case that when I was younger, I would ping along and I could run for 2 hours, pinging along, and felt nothing, absolutely nothing. I just ping along, and it was like a walk. But that's not the case the older you get. So, yes, there's a pain there, but you can enjoy the fact that you are working hard. So don't look at people and go, I'm finding this terrible, this isn't getting any easier, I'm still hurting. Yes, it hurts. Don't worry. Everyone's the same. All humans are like this, unless you're very young and incredibly fit. So don't get downcast about that. And the big thing is about running, especially any sort of distance at all, is every single time you do it is timing. It's good, because you will notice you're 30 seconds better after the third one, and 30 seconds more. It feels as if you're not recovering, you're not getting better, but you are getting better. You might take 5 stops in your first run, you might only take 4 in the second one. You need to check it a few months on, and you'll see how different it is.
The technology's really made it a more enjoyable thing to do. Even somebody I was talking to who is not a runner, and in the current climate she is starting, and she was able to download this app, Couch to 5K, and initially it's really nice. So what it tells me what to do, I have to run for 3 minutes, then I stop and walk for a minute, then I run a bit more, and obviously over the course of a few weeks she'll get to run the 5K in totality. But I thought that's a lovely way to do it, to almost hand over the reins to somebody else.
I know, it's great. I use Strava, and Strava's it just tells you the distance you've gone, the height, your average speed that you're going, all that sort of stuff. Now, to be honest, professional athletes are all doing that as well. They're told exactly what to do. They're having to time it. But if you put it on, I mentioned Strava, it happens to be the one that I use, but there are others out there. You can't hide it. You just need to press a button, email it in, and you can't say, oh no, I did that much quicker. I think
Ross Barkley may have hit pause once or twice in the midst of his run. I think you just the 3 or 4 minutes off the world record, Ross. Who knew he was such a box-to-box midfielder?
I'll show you. To be honest, everybody, the amount of people that do it, even in pro sport, they try and, during training, try and cheat a little bit. And they always get the same phrase. I mean, everyone say it together. You're only cheating yourself.
Well, indeed.
and it is so true. Absolutely so true.
A link with all the running. Today marks the anniversary, not a particularly profound one or anything, but of Roger Bannister in 1954, the 4-minute mile, 3 minutes, 59 seconds, 0.4. And this was always held up as an example of the power of belief, the Bannister 4-minute mile, in that he cracks it first, and there was a sense of, well, others followed very quickly, because, there were even rumors you would combust instantly as a human being, crack the 4-minute mile. And I think within a year, they were up to 4 or 5 who'd broken it. And the year after that, 30 or something had broken it. Still not that many have in history, like 1,400, I think, is the total. But it was always held up as this is an example of the power of the mind. And I never quite bought that with Bannister. I just thought natural progression and training meant that it was going to be broken sooner or later, and all the others would have followed either way. Now, not exactly.
He didn't think that way, by the way. He thought none of that.
Did he? Yeah.
He was a doctor. He was an intelligent man, and
he got all that.
Brilliant career afterwards. So he never thought any of that nonsense.
Yes, and it's not exactly lab conditions. But the reason I bring it up, and there is something in it though, because even you can think of numerous examples. Like, for instance, there was a 10-year period here where a glut of Irish golfers won majors, and they all said, Harrington made the breakthrough, and then they all said, oh, well, I kind of, I know him. It demystified it a little bit. I've seen him make mistakes. I've seen him at his worst. And, McDowell won one, and Clark won one, and, well, McIlroy would have regardless, I presume. But the power of belief, is that something that you thought about much as a player? Did you believe in it? The power of the mind, all that kind of stuff, inhibiting beliefs?
I understood it. I always understood it. As a kid, I'd studied psychology anyway. It's one of the sort of things that I'd studied before I became a footballer. So I understood it anyway. And I'd been brought up within the Celtic tradition. I'd been at Celtic as a kid, which had this attitude of, oh, there is only one thing, winning. You ignore the rest. It's all dull. That's first and worst. All that sort of stuff. And you were really indoctrinated, and it was like Jesuitical, all that sort of stuff. You really were indoctrinated with it. So you kind of had it. But you noticed that other people didn't have it. And I mean professionals didn't have that. And you'd look at them and go, why don't you feel that way? Why don't you understand this concept of that there are only these two positions? And they would kind of just do their best. But no, you will not be able to win. But it gets much easier to win when you know you can. It really is. It's the amount of teams that I've talked to. My classic example, I'd give you from my career. I played for Chelsea for 5 years, and every year we'd go and try and win the FA Cup and hope that we might. And then I went to Everton, who thought, yeah, we should win the FA Cup this year. He said, that's different. One group of players weren't that much better than another group, but that group said, yeah, we should win this. Now, Everton got to the FA Cup final that first season and thought, yeah, that's where we should be. Had it been with that other group of players, it'd been, wow, we're here, this is amazing. And it's a totally different mindset. And it's a kind of lucky to be here kind of thing. In a very, very simplistic way. If you actually think you're going to do it, the chances are you've got a much, much better chance of doing it. And that's the most simplistic way of putting it, but that's at the root of it all. And the amount of people that I've worked with that I've looked around me. I mean, another great example, again, it's at that level and it's at that level. It's right up there and right, I'm trying to see the camera, right up there, right up there and down there. I remember I played for Kilmarnock near the end of my career. I remember a few weeks into I thought, not a bad team this actually. These lads are good, they really believe in themselves. And about 10 or 11 games in, we'd go to play Celtic at Celtic Park. Right, we're ready, lads. Turn round. Silence. Scared to death. And I'm going, you were all right 10 minutes ago, you lot. And just that, and they were beaten before they walked out. They were gone before they walked out. And it's like another cliche, but it's absolutely true. And I'm walking around going, they're only blokes, of these guys. Yeah, they're quite good, but we need to fight the way. If you think you're not good enough, and so many of them went into their shells in front of Parkhead and all those supporters. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The first time, and then when you beat them once, you think, oh, that's how you do it. But you need to do it that first time. And that's harder when you've got the wrong psychology.
I was going to, well, I guess you sort of answered the next question because I was going to ask, well, let's ask it then, aside from winning and getting that victory and seeing for yourself that it's possible, is there anything a manager can say or do to almost imbue a team with certain belief in themselves?
Seen a million different ways of doing it. You know, some have tried. Humour's a cracker, actually. It really is quite a good one because it relaxes everyone. You think, oh, well, just have a go. You mean it? The shouting and bawling and the fist pumping stuff, very good. Everyone does that. Yeah, that's going to work maybe once if you're lucky. Yeah. But you've got to think a wee bit better than that. You've got to get slightly inside the minds of the most important players. You need to make sure that the leaders are still leading and they're not hiding in a corner as well. You need to make sure when they walk out there, when you're on the ball, you're not seeing a whole big bunch of backsides in front of you and people who don't want to get a ball. You need all those different things. But oddly enough, humour is, I found that quite a fun one and a good one. I remember Tam Burns used to play for Celtic in Scotland. He came away with an absolute cracker once. And the Kelly boys told me about it, and he was the Kelly manager at the time, and they were playing against Celtic, and he knew that they had this psychological problem. And he gave them the big talk, and he said, right, lads, completely, I'll be there, I'll be at your backs, and, you know, you'll know where I am all the way through this. You can turn around, you'll know where I am. And the lads go, yeah. And he jumped into the basket where they kept the strips and clothes. Just sat in there. I'm not coming out. You lot are going to get hammered. And he was like winding them up, and they just all started laughing at him. And they went out and they got a result on the day. Apparently it was a draw or something like that. So you're lighten it, make sure that you're not going to tense. That's a good thing as well. But for some guys that'll work, for some guys it won't. So you need to know what is the best thing to work for each individual. And the worst thing is, most managers of a certain ilk think there is one way, or they try the one way with everyone. Well, that's not the case, because we're all different psychologically. You should be going around, you need that, you need that, you need nothing, you need that, you need that. And you should know those people. And that's how you get better. But I mean, it is that psychological thing, that great moment when you think, we can do this. And suddenly it gets easier.
Yeah. You strike me as a player who would have been maybe at best indifferent to the hairdryer treatment, if not slightly dismayed by the thought of it, especially a regular one.
Well, oddly enough, I was writing about it recently. And I got hammered really when I was about 15, 16. This manager who shouted and bawled and screamed and gave me the whole right up in the face, spit in the face, everything. And I got it every single week for a year. And I could play a year, I was top goal scorer, all that. Every single week I got it during the games, and at half time and after the game I get shouting and screamed and bawled. And he was about 6'1", this guy. I was like, I'm not enjoying this anymore, so I'm not going to play anymore. And he just said at the end of the season, it's a long story. The shortened version is he just said, I only shout at good players, you know, because there's no point shouting at bad players. And by the way, that was a test you passed. And no one will ever have an effect on you. And a couple of managers tried to, during my career, shouting and bawling and screaming right there, and I was like, bothered. It had no effect, because I knew within myself what I needed to do. But I've watched other people be crushed by it. I've watched other people be lifted by it. I have to tell you, in the scheme of things, more get crushed by it than are lifted by it. Many more. Now, in the old school in the game, they would say to you, well, they weren't strong enough personalities anyway, so that they were going to fold. And maybe I was on their camp in that, you know, in my early days. As time has gone on, you realise, no, people come on at different times. They are personalities. You just have to find the best way to get the best out of them. But I've seen people crushed, and it's horrible to see it, like people who could have had decent careers just ruined by that old school thinking.
Yes. And it's funny you mentioned that. I don't know, did I say this to you a while back? It was in Wayne Rooney's article in the Sunday Times. Alex Ferguson, who you wouldn't say was totally progressive when it came to that whole area, but Rooney was making the point, your face told a picture there. Rooney was making the point that he did pick and choose a little bit. So Rooney felt if, for instance, Ronaldo was giving the ball away too much, then Rooney always got it for giving the ball away too much. Or the other one he always picked on was Giggs. So if Nani was dribbling too much, then Giggs got given out at halftime for dribbling too much. And Ronaldo and Nani would be sitting beside Giggs and Rooney and noticing all this. Now, the downside was Giggs and Rooney had to take this for, well, in Giggs' case, 20-odd years. But at least that showed on Ferguson's part, because, you obviously so successful, had to have many strings to his bow. A certain understanding, probably instinctive as opposed to read in books or picked up, but a certain understanding of various personality types.
I know where he got it from. I know where he stole it.
Jock Steen?
Yeah. And I remember Benny explained to me, Danny McGrain explained it to me one day. And he explained what Jock used to do, because he used to want to hammer certain players, but he'd say, they can't take it, so I'm going to hammer you. And he'd tell you beforehand. And you're getting battered, but it's not aimed at you, it's aimed at him who's over there, who's thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get that next.
Yeah.
He's the one is getting it, really, who's going to get it. He did once, apparently, another one he did with Dalglish, where he told Davy Hay and he told Danny McGrain, just said, by the way, I'm going to hammer Dalglish today, I'm going to absolutely batter him today. It doesn't matter what he does. Apparently he scores a hat-trick. Came in and hammered him anyway. Absolutely went through him. Right. He's done a couple of things that have not. In simplest terms, he's getting a bit big for his boots in the moment. And in the moment, Steen had to drag him back. So he considered. So it looks like loss of control. I think that's the point you're making about Ferguson. It looks like lack of control and loss of control. When in actual fact, it's not really all the time. People that are a lot cleverer than that. And you're right, they will pick and choose the ones. The worst one, I'm sure I've told you before, I get the worst. I didn't get the hairdryer from Sir Alec. I got worse than that from him.
Ignored.
No, I get silence. I did the wrong thing playing for Scotland against England. And instead of shouting and bawling, he asked me the question. I gave the wrong answer. And he just walked away. I went, I don't think that's going very well. So I didn't get picked for going to the World Cup in '86 under Sir Alec. I didn't do the right thing at that point in time. That was just before the World Cup as well. I was kind of on trial with him. But it was, you actually knew that was worse than the hairdryer, just to get the old. Right.
And do you remember what he asked you? Was it?
Oh, yeah. No, clearly. Yeah, I was playing. We were 2-1 down. I was in box with Terry Butcher. I dummied him 2 ways, went round him. Butch took me out. I didn't go down, held my feet, laid the ball back. Roy Aitken smashed it over the bar. After the game, we got beat 2-1 at Wembley. And Sir Alec came over and said, did Butcher catch you in the box? I went, yeah, he did, but I've got decent balance. I managed to hold myself up and not go down. And he just went, and walked away. As if to say, didn't say anything, didn't need to say anything, but I didn't go to Mexico.
Particularly cutthroat.
That was a real kind of moment of, there you go.
Could you tell in that very brief time you might have had with him around then that he was going to be so special?
He already was. In our eyes, in Scottish people's eyes, he was, because of what he'd done with Aberdeen. Because Celtic and Rangers had been such a stranglehold on it. Yet there he goes to Aberdeen and manages to put this. Remember, they won a European trophy. It was Aberdeen.
Beat Real Madrid, didn't they, in the final?
Exactly. Real Madrid. It's not when Real Madrid were rubbish. It was Real Madrid. And they had put a lot of good teams on the way there as well. So to do it in a European and realising it's not a one-off because he's beaten Celtic and Rangers in the league, that's pretty spectacularly good. So I think the thinking was at the time he was really highly rated. Whether you thought he would go and do what he did, no. I don't think anyone could have guessed that. That's massive. That's gigantic. That's over and above any expectation. Now, by the way, just to go back to Sir Alec, I remember asking McClare about that. I said, how many times has the gaffer ran through you, gave you the whole lot? He goes, he tried it once. Never bothered again. Because Brown's so inscrutable, so kind of, aye, right, okay, very good. and he is completely unearthly. You cannot read McClare. And but funnily enough, Sir Alec, Brian was always called Sir Alec's boy, as in his son. And but Sir Alec couldn't read Brian. He could read most people, but he could never read Brian. And he couldn't understand why Brian would take the complete piss out of him and think it was okay and always play tricks on him. Brian used to take him in, I don't know if you know this, Brian used to take him into training every day because he lived nearby, just round the corner. But he'd leave his phone down and Brian would always change the phone because Brian's good with technology. And every time his phone would ring, he would say, Chalky is great, in Sir Alec Ferguson's phone. and he would change the tunes to weird music that Brian and I would like. And like, he had no idea how to change it back, and just simple things like that. And he knew it was Brian was doing it, and Brian would just sit there laughing.
Wow.
So
I didn't think he was a man you played tricks on like that. There you
no,
go.
he isn't, because he can read most people. He just couldn't read Brian.
Brian is unreadable, though, isn't he? I mean, I've only come to realise this quite late about Brian McClary. We're all unique, but he's definitely unique.
Of all the people, there was 2 people in my career I ever played with, made me feel like a normal footballer. Brian was one of them, and Neville Southall was the other one. I was closer to a normal footballer than they were. But I see Brian quite a lot, not at the moment, obviously, but we get in touch through Zoom. And he's the same, but here's a wee trick to play if any ever meet up with Brian, which you will in Ireland, because he goes over to the Man United supporters clubs around the world. Brian's kind of like that. He's really good with it, the way he does it, helpful in the way he does it. Get him drunk, and then you see the real Brian. There's the clue.
One last Ferguson question. His general demeanour away from, hairdryer and not hairdryer, those very memorable moments, just as a general presence around the place, how would you describe it?
It's away from the ground. It's a lot. Funnily enough, I was talking about this last night to, of all people, Kelly Cates, Kenny's daughter. And it was really interesting to ask her, like, somebody said to us, well, what's it like, when, you have to be a different man in front of the press? And she asked that question to me, and I went, what are you asking me for? You know better than anybody. You watch your dad. Who everybody thought was a dour, dull, annoying. All the journalists couldn't cope with Kenny at all. But I knew Kenny because I played with him. He's a right laugh. He's just, he's so funny. He's very dry, but he's very, very funny as well. He's always looking for a laugh with people. And he's an intelligent enough guy as well. And people have to be a different person in different situations. You're not the same talking to me. I know you're in your house, but when you go and talk to your wife, you'll be a wee bit different to the way you're talking to us, just now. We are different people in different situations. It's basic psychology stuff. And absolutely, the managers are all the same. They are totally different. Kelly was saying last night, well, she was interviewing Davy Moyes. He was in his home in Zoom. Totally different person. Absolutely different. Totally relaxed. The stress isn't on. Okay, we're not in a stressful situation of work just now, but put them in different circumstances and you're seeing a completely different thing. Kenny was a classic example of that. And Sir Alex is exactly the same. It really was exactly the same. But it was always away from the football grounds. That was the difference. Meet him at a football ground if he's the manager when he's in Scotland, or he's the manager of Man United when I'm playing against Manchester United. It's very businesslike, very strong. You're not getting anything more. You're just getting the dead eyes and the business stuff, right? I remember him once coming around to a training ground at, when it was at Everton. When it was about 2 or 3 years into it, and for whatever reason he was there. And he sat down where I was sitting in the canteen place. And honestly, he dropped into that calm conversation you'd have with a friend from Glasgow. Now, we're both from rough areas of Glasgow. And it was that conversation. We'd never had that conversation before. We'd never had that relaxed. But we were right in there within a sentence. So take him out of the environment and the other person's allowed to come back. And Charlie he was great. Interesting, enjoyable, very, very, very political. Stunningly political. Very hard left at that time, but certainly very much for you. He would talk to me to death about unions and what the union were doing, what we should be doing, and how he could help, that sort of thing. So take them out of the environment, and yeah, they are different.
That's a great answer. To round this off, there's not much news to talk about, but to bring people up to date who are only casually dipping into Project Restart, as we have to call it now, what's happened of late is that the Aston Villa chief executive, Christian Purslow, has been talking. The plan as it stands is neutral venues. And so Purslow has come out and said, well, look, 17 of our 25 points have come at home. We're second from bottom. We have a game in hand on Watford. He said, personally, talking about neutral venues, I'm against it. We're a club that prides itself on home form. 2/3 of our wins this season have come at home. We've got 6 home games left. And I think any Villa fan would agree that giving up that advantage is a massive decision for somebody running Aston Villa. And I certainly wouldn't agree to that unless those circumstances are right. Following that, the League Managers Association chief, Richard Bevan, he was saying that, well, if this isn't passed, if this neutral venue plan isn't passed, he said, yes, I think the season probably will be cancelled. Now, they need 14 of 20. They'll probably get 14 of 20. I don't know how messy all this gets if the other 6 are really, really unhappy about this. And maybe they can, wink and a nod, and certain players say, I don't really want to play in the current circumstances. Like, they can get this thing stopped if they really want to. But that's where we are. I don't know what's jumping out at you over the last couple of days.
I'm amazed. I mean, first of all, that's no different from my position of 7 weeks ago. What Richard Bevan saying just now. I can't imagine you do it in all the grounds. I just can't imagine the logistics. The logistics are hard enough as it is. You take the logistics of everyone has to play their home games at the home grounds, and it's mind-blowing. That travel, that amount of games in that short of time, it's almost unthinkable. Almost all the ideas that you have to go down the route of now are unthinkable. What you have to do in these situations is find a method, the simplest method, a core way where the logistics can be made as easy as possible. And I thought there would be one or two that would say, oh, we need the home games, but would basically crack really quickly because they realised it was not possible. But it sounded a wee bit loud. I think Brighton might have made some noises about it.
Brighton and Villa publicly have come out very strongly, yeah.
Now, fine, you're fighting for your case. You need to fight for your case. But I think, I suspect when they look at the reality, they'll say, actually, that's doable. And it may well be that their game plan, their end game is, remember, it's kind of game theory stuff. Like, they're saying, right, okay, what's the game if we game it this way and then the games don't go ahead? Well, do we stay up? Do we go down? Do they null and void the season? Do they do the average points? They will take all that into consideration. Just sadly, it's the way of business. I just don't think it's going to happen like that. I think what they do is they will bend and accept that they will have to play at neutral venues. It may be a number of neutral venues, and they will find that way of getting by it. However, that's not to say it's going to happen. I mean, underline, that's not to say it's going to happen. There's a million things can stop it happening before that gets there. But to add, complexities and, more difficulties into what has to be a streamlined, simple way, you're just ruining the chances of you finishing it. I don't know if you heard, they made a big thing about yesterday in the UK. Gordon Taylor had mentioned the fact that, maybe 5 subs and the possibility of playing shorter games. The place went mad. Gordon wasn't saying play shorter games. He was just saying there is a problem. One of the problems is with a 4-week run-up, players won't be fit to play 90-minute games 3 times a week. That's what the medics say. Okay, so you look at the problem from the other angle and say, well, shorten the games and they can play that. It's just an idea. A number of people have come up with it. They're all hammering Gordon Taylor now. What you're saying, how dare you? He wasn't saying that. He was saying, but this is what you take every set of circumstances and you balance them with that one. We are in weird country now.
Yeah.
If we're talking about 5 substitutes, somebody at some point, I don't think I've said it yet, right? I've not said it yet. Trust me, it will happen in the next few weeks. Someone will say the phrase rolling substitutes, right?
Yeah.
It's a step. So there's nothing surer in the world that somebody will say something about rolling substitutes, right? I've not heard it yet. But it's just complete and utter logic.
Yeah.
Total logic. And in situations like this, you need to take these things on board.
Yeah, and in fairness to Taylor, actually, he said that the 45-minute halves had been discussed. He didn't say he thought this was a great idea. It was just in passing in a Radio 4 interview. He said that it was discussed at the meeting. He didn't massively.
That's not how it was promoted in various.
No. Taylor insists on 45-minute halves. Must go. I mean, if you're Purslow, if you're Aston Villa, because he used the figure 200 million to finish up on this point. He said, you get relegated potentially if you don't bounce back straight away. You're looking at 200 million gap. He may figure, you know what, TV money, whatever's still owing to us, if we can get this thing null and voided and we're guaranteed in the Premier League next year, well, I'm game theory in my way to that solution, one way or another. And he just needs the other 5 or 6 who are also looking over their shoulders at relegation to come along with him. Yeah,
but he also has to put it in his mind that almost a lot of other leagues have looked at that concept and said, no, just take it as average points now. You're going down. And which, again, because if you say it null and void, the teams from below, they're going to sue you. They are going to sue, and they'll probably win.
Will they probably win? If you null and void the Championship and you null and void the Premier League, would they be?
You've entered an agreement. It's a contract with all the different organisations, and you've spent a lot of money, and you've got yourself, like say you're Leeds United or whatever. So you have taken a chance to take a risk, but the risk is just about to pay off, and then they change the rules, and you think, well, you can't change the rules.
I mean, I'm not an expert. I just would have thought force majeure comes in and you get away with anything.
Possibly, but possibly not. You know, because they could say, yeah, but that's because they played the game. That's because Aston Villa said this and Brighton said that.
Yeah.
And they manipulated it. You know, if other leagues, say the German league, managed to finish their league, they'll just turn around and go, what about them? Who did it? So, hey, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Nobody knows the answer to that. That's why and that's what makes lawyers very, very happy. None of us know the answer to that. That's the big smiles come up in the lawyers' faces.
Sure does.
That will be extraordinary. That will go legal. That's not a maybe. That's a definite.
Well, on that note, we will say goodbye for this week. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks a million, Pat Nevin. Great as always.
Pleasure. Speak to you soon.
Yeah, good. Before we get into the La Liga situation, how is life in Spain? It seems like there's been some minor reduction in the quarantine that you guys have been sitting through.
Yeah, over the last week or so, the government have relaxed a little bit the restrictions. It's still quite restrictive, but we're allowed out for a walk. It was 7 weeks where we weren't really supposed to leave the house except to go to the shop. So we're inside just to the little bit of garden we have was as far as we were going with the kids. Whereas now you're able to bring them for a walk. Went out for a run for the first time in 7 weeks at the weekend as well. So bit by bit, there's a feeling of things opening up. Obviously, it depends on how things go, and there's still most of the shops are closed. Most people are working from home, the people who can. But there's a feeling maybe that heading out of the restrictions and hopefully that things are heading in the right direction.
And is that contingent on the figures continuing to come down? And what has the trend in the figures been like over the last couple of days?
Yeah, for sure. The figures are like, it's weird to be talking about things in a positive way when they're still, it's still quite high. But the figures were up at like 1,000 people a day were dying, which was awful. They've come down to like 200, something around that. They pop up and down, but they're heading in the right direction, which is allowing the hospitals seem to be able to handle what they need to at the moment. Because there were, like in Madrid here, they opened up a field hospital in a big conference centre. What was turned over into a makeshift hospital. A big ice rink was turned into a morgue for a while. There was those type of things which were pretty spectacularly concerning and awful, really. Whereas they have been closed now, so the hospital system seems to be able to handle what it needs to at the moment, which is allowing for the little bits of opening up to happen.
While all that was happening, the conversation around football was happening as well, and it's obviously a very difficult conversation for anybody to have, but the importance of football as an economic driver in Spain kept being spoken about. So it was like a significant number of jobs, a significant amount of money that will help to restart the economy from a television perspective, from a revenue perspective, even from the gambling companies. They were like, look, this is all very difficult for us to talk about, but we kind of need to get this back up and running. So was the political pressure coming from was the pressure coming from the political side as opposed to football, or did football find that they had common ground with the politicians in trying to get the game back as soon as possible?
Yeah, more the second one, I'd say. Like the La Liga president Javier Tebas is a very smart guy, and he was out in front of it, really, that as soon as everything shut down, he was talking about how important football was, how much it's like 1.3% of the entire GDP of the country, according to La Liga anyway, is generated by football. There's thousands and thousands of jobs. I don't have the figure here. And he was quickly saying that we're going to have to bring it back. If we can't play these 11 games that are left, it's going to be huge, that clubs are going to go out of business, that it's just unsustainable to have it. We saw at Barcelona there was a bit of a row between the players and the board over how they were going to impose wage cuts, and the players ended up kind of taking over that as well, which was huge news here. It was like headline news. So football was front and centre in how maybe society was dealing with coronavirus, or the impact that it was having on different parts. And the Spanish sports minister, because football in Spain, the different authorities are always at war between, especially the Federation and La Liga. That came out that one would have one plan, another would have another plan. They'd be criticising each other in the headlines. The sports minister kind of knocked them together and got them to come up with a protocol they've talked about to be able to bring football back. And she was quite open about saying that it would be a good thing to get football back, even if it is just on the TVs, that people can, she said, sit around the TV and watch it. It'll bring people together, be something to talk about. And it will be a sign that, at least if we have games to watch on the TV and to talk about in the media and everything, that will be a sign that we're on the path back to normality. The health guys weren't quite as keen on that. There was a little bit of strife between the health minister and the sports minister, or behind the scenes anyway. But they've been able to work out a plan which sees players in for testing today, and they're hoping to roll out a phased return that will get games back by the middle of June.
Can we just tease out what that difficulty from the health perspective was? Because that's the thing really that everybody's concerned about, that there's going to be a second wave, and that getting people back to work early is going to bring a second wave, and that's going to be catastrophic for the health system and for the economy into the future, because that's at that point there's no kind of like, oh, it'll be grand, we know what we're doing. It's like you get one shot at this. So what were the concerns? Did any of that leak out into public about what the health minister was specifically concerned about?
And the biggest problem was more around the availability of tests, because there's a lot of people in Spain who would like to get tested, especially people working in supermarkets or in the health system, or people whose jobs are more important than footballers, I guess. Whereas La Liga were able to source tests through a German company, I think it was, but in a private way. So they were going to set it up themselves, and that just didn't look so good when the health system was struggling to get enough testing and to get enough of the equipment that they needed. That's not such a big deal at the moment, is my understanding, because the situation is more under control, which means that the health system have withdrawn the concerns that they had, or have taken the block off it. And football was even mentioned in the briefings of the health. I'm not sure he's the health minister, but the guy from the government who gives the health briefings every day was asked about football and said that it would be possible that they'd found a way to allow the tests to go ahead, and for the players to be able to get it, even though there's still people who maybe in more important jobs who would like to get tested.
Right. So even on the pitch, the health professionals in Spain are fairly confident that things will be safe, actually proceeding with the games and actually having a full game of 22 players on the pitch will actually be okay and won't pose any extra risk to players or any unnecessary risk to players.
Nobody's gone quite that far to say it. Okay. Everybody's been quite. There's a lot of talk about phased rollouts and phase 1 and phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and there's a big document produced by La Liga in association with the health authorities, but it seems to be La Liga who maybe wrote most of the document and then got it signed off on by the health authorities, and that means that, like, when the players go back, they're being tested in their cars this week, so they roll up to the training ground and get tested through the car window, and then they go home, and then within 48 hours or so they should have the results of that, allowing them to restart training either maybe on Friday or early next week, where they just go in and go for a run around the training ground on their own. They don't come into contact with anybody, and then bit by bit it's built up into small groups working together, always on the hope kind of that everything continues to go in the same direction, and that there's less, I don't know, it's kind of facetious to say, but maybe less coronavirus around, so there's less chance of people being infected or picking it up on the way to the shops or whatever, and then bringing it into the training centre. But it's all it's impossible to say at the moment. It's all based on kind of a positive scenario or best case scenarios. They're starting to go back in the hope that they'll be able to do it, rather than saying that in 6 weeks' time it'll be fine and we're sure that you'll be able to run around and challenge for headers and all that a football game involves. That it's all hopeful rather than anybody making any promises about what might happen.
It's interesting that La Liga have put together this document and got the government and the health professionals to sign off on it, rather than taking instruction and making their plan as a result of what the government may give them. Isn't it that's fairly proactive from everybody involved in the Liga?
Yeah, for sure. And, La Liga President Javier Tebas is a divisive figure. Maybe in some ways he's a guy who's often in the headlines, who talks a lot, who's very forceful in his opinions about what's good for Spanish football, and he's a guy who can get things done. He's brought in a lot of changes in Spanish football. He's professionalised it a lot, and he's not afraid of a challenge. Really, he's taken this on, taking a real leadership kind of role in this. Not everybody is super happy with that, and there's been some blowback from different people. But even from talking around to clubs and to people close to the players, everybody seems to be happy to allow La Liga to take a leading role on it, and for them to be the ones who put in place the plan, and then other people will go along with that. The health system, I think, I don't know. I haven't been in that much contact with the health system, so I'd be kind of assuming what they're doing. But they're so busy that they're not going to be putting in a special plan for football at the minute. But when their people had a look at the plan, they agreed for it to go forward in the initial stage, at least.
How did the players feel about this, Dermot?
Yeah, it's changed a lot because, football was badly hit at the start. Remember the Valencia game that they played against Atalanta in Milan, which, people talked about as a biological bomb, or there was a lot of, it had a bad effect. And then the Atletico Madrid game in Anfield, that people worried that a lot of people got infected at that as well. And Valencia had some players, like 35% of Valencia's first team players and staff tested positive for it. So there were a lot of people saying, footballers can't be the guinea pigs for this, or footballers are, we all have families too. We have, maybe older relatives or family members who are in high-risk situations, who have illnesses. So they were very against it at the start. It didn't look like it was going to be possible at all. But bit by bit, as the weeks have gone past, and especially as over the last week, as things have started to open up here, the people I've been talking to anyway, close to the players, have said that the players, they realise that they have to get back to work, that their livelihoods depend on it, that they can't just say, that's it, we're not going to play, that's not a realistic option for them, really. There have been a couple of people, Rafinha at Celta Vigo, used to play for Barcelona, says he won't play until there's a vaccine found for it, and a couple of other players as well. But generally, the players aren't going out and doing too many interviews about it. They don't want to be seen to be disrespecting anybody, or to be making too many steps in public, but in private they kind of accept that, well, it's our job and we're going to have to go back to it, always with the understanding that all the tests are done and that everything is done as much as possible. They realise that there's some risk involved in everything, and people are taking risks, whether they're working in the supermarket or delivery guys or bus drivers or whoever, and that they're going to have to do it too.
When do you actually think there would be, under this plan, what's the likelihood of there being a game? At what date?
Well, the hope is for the 11th of June has been talked about as a time where there might be a game, but it's very difficult to anybody who tells you for sure that that's going to happen, doesn't really know, because it all depends on what happens. But that's what they're working towards at the moment. And if the figures or the numbers continue to fall, and if the situation appears to be under control, there's talk of bars and restaurants opening up quite soon here. Shops are bit by bit, hairdressers are open here this week. So if things continue to go like that, and we're heading back towards some kind of, the new normal, as people are kind of saying about it a little bit, then it seems possible that there might be games within the month of June. Which
would be an incredible turnaround from where we were 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. Like I spoke to, just for one of the piece I did for The Athletic, I spoke to a guy from a fans group, and they're against it. Like the idea of playing the games behind closed doors, he talked about it as like a reality TV show more than a football league, that it's just going to be different. Like even to imagine, how the players, what motivation they're going to have, what happens when maybe some of their squad members can't play because they're in quarantine and they have to play itself. It's going to be really unique kind of situation if it does happen to roll out. It's going to be fascinating to see. Everything is kind of weird at the moment to be talking about it like this, but the hope on the behalf of La Liga and on behalf of the clubs and of a lot of the players is that they're willing to to get involved in the process and to push it forward and to move in that direction and to try and play the games.
Last question: do you think Spain then will become a template for other countries around Europe? That like, it seems like there's a bit of a race on at the moment between the Premier League, La Liga, and even the Bundesliga to get football back as soon as they possibly can. I guess those football authorities and those health authorities are looking at what everybody else is doing to try and see what the best practice is, or what mistakes are being made.
Yeah, for sure. Like you saw at Crystal Palace, chairman, I think, is it Steve Parish? He was talking about how, you know, football needs to come back as well in England, and using La Liga and using Javier Tebas as an example of people who were working towards it and something that they would like to follow. Yeah, like we've been watching very closely what's going on in Germany here, who are a little bit ahead with the tests, and we saw, you know, Kalou yesterday maybe making a little bit unfortunate video, and that could have a setback. And everybody is watching everybody else, but there's a feeling, I guess, in Spain and I guess in England, in lots of leagues as well, that football can't. If the games aren't played, the football is going to be very difficult to survive. It's going to, you know, have huge consequences. Clubs are going to go bankrupt. Players' contracts are going to just have to be terminated, and they don't want that to happen at all. So they're trying to find a way to avoid that. And if it does work in Spain, then I guess other people will try to follow that example.
All right, good stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning, and stay well. Thanks a million.
Yeah, you guys too. Nice to talk to you.